Well, Hilary, here we are. I don't know how this is going to work. I've never made a video like this before, and I'm not sure how the camera angles will go. Now, actually teaching you to cut the neoprene strips would probably take me all of a minute. So I'm going to put in some extra wee tips about the way that I do a refelting job. And I'm not trying to make you change your method, I'm just showing you how I do it. If you see some things that you like in there, then by all means you can pick them up and carry on from there. Now, this harp doesn't need refelting, but I'm using it for demonstration purposes, and usually when I take all the bars off, I take the opportunity to have a real good spring clean underneath the bars. Give it a real good clean. Get a duster in there on the end of a ruler or something like that and make sure it's all nice and tidy. And I usually give the strings a wee brush as well, and perhaps a rub with one of those little grit washing up cloths that you get, and that cleans them up quite nicely. So when you're ready to move on and actually do some felting, now as I say, this bar doesn't need felting, but I'm using it for demonstration purposes. Now, all the bars that I use have the position that the bar takes up in the pack written on the end, so there's never any question of mixing them up. You just look in the end and the position of the bar is written on the end. So this bar goes in position 1 at the end there. Now, how to actually mark and identify where you want to place the notch. Most people that I've spoken to take the easy way out and they put the bar in the nearest notch because it's easier to get at it, and they take the pen. Very often they just use a free hand. They look down and they find out where the string is and they make a wee mark up above it and they go along and so on, identifying the strings that they need to cut a notch for, and just mark a notch freehand. The trouble with doing it that way is that although it would work perfectly well on this harp, which is one I made myself, because I know that the comb is absolutely parallel to the strings, so that if I mark, for instance, the top string on there while it's positioned in this lower position here, I know that when I move it and put it back where it's supposed to live, that the difference, or there will be no difference should I say, between the distance from the pin to the string. It will be identical. So in this particular harp, and in many luthier built instruments, it doesn't really matter where you place the bar to mark it. But that's not always the case on mass-produced factory instruments from the Far East. So why take a chance? If the comb isn't parallel and you mark it here and then place the bar where it's going to live, then it may not match perfectly with the string positions. So I just choose to take the easy way out, and every bar that I mark it in the position that it's going to live on the harp when it's in use. So bar number 1 is placed in slot number 1 and it's marked in that position. Bar number 2 comes next, it's placed in it's marked in its own position, and so on all the way down. And that eliminates any room for error. Now the other thing, marking freehand. If you've got a nice steady hand, that's grand. You can look at the position where the string is and you can just mark a line straight up and down, but sadly my hands aren't quite as steady as they used to be. So I take the easy way out and I use just an ordinary business card. And I put the card down like so that the edge of the card is spot on top of the string that I want to cut a notch for, and then, yeah, I just make a mark like so, and there we are. And that can be done right across the full width. When you get near here, you mark it from the other end. Okay? Absolutely fail safe, and you get a full set of accurate marks where you need to cut a notch. Now I've marked one here deliberately, just a little bit off. If you make a mistake with one, I've done it with black pen, so I just gently scribble out the black mark, and then I get my green pen and I correct the mark and put another line on where the slot should be. Okay, now you'll notice I've put a bit of masking tape on this bar, and that's because it's a very nice wooden bar and I don't want to put black ink marks up and down it. So before I mark it, I simply put a wee bit of 1/2 inch masking tape on it, trim it off nice and neatly, and there you are. As soon as you've finished it, you can just strip the masking tape off and the bar's pristine and unmarked underneath. Okay, so let's see how we actually apply the neoprene and how we actually cut it. Now it's a very simple operation, and it's actually a lot easier than cutting felt. When you're cutting felt, you need to use a knife such as this with a brand new blade in it, and I always lubricate the blade in a wee bit of hot water with a dash of washed up liquid in it, and that lubricates it a wee bit when you're cutting out the notch. But you don't need sharp knives when you're working with neoprene, because what you use instead is a little pair of nail scissors like these. Best if you get something that looks like this with little short stiff blades on and a good bit of leverage on them. Very rigid, and it cuts lovely notches out. You can use this type of scissors, but they're a bit longer, the blades, and they're not quite so easily controlled. So if you can find a pair of scissors like that, that's the type that I would use. Okay, let's put the harp away just now. Now, here are the strips, and these strips were cut to match my own bars, which are a little bit narrower than an Oscar Schmidt bar. The Oscar Schmidt bars are about 6mm, perhaps a little more sometimes, and these ones are about 5.6mm. So this strip is a little bit narrower than I would have cut if I was cutting it specifically for an Oscar Schmidt bar. This is an Oscar Schmidt bar here, and the felt is just a little bit narrower, but it still does a perfectly adequate job, and I'll show you how to mount it just in a moment.